two sisters had worked tirelessly, saving every penny to finally buy their own apartment. To them, it was the start of a bright new chapter, a home built on hard work and sacrifice. But what they didn't know was that the place they'd invested their dreams in was already tainted. A haunted house. Not long after moving in, Joo-hee began unraveling under the relentless noise coming from the unit upstairs. Desperate for relief, she climbed up to stick sponge pads on the ceiling, hoping to muffle the racket. But just as she was finishing, the thumping started again. Frustrated, Joo-hee grabbed her camcorder. If she recorded the evidence, she could finally confront the neighbor. Yet before she could take a step, a strange grinding sound rose from the balcony. The phone rang, startling her. She set the camera down on the table, pointing straight at the balcony before answering. On the other end, silence. No one spoke. Then, with a thunderous crash from upstairs, the apartment lights flickered out. Darkness. A beat later, they sputtered back on. The noise above continued, and Joo-hee's patience snapped. She stormed toward the stairs, determined to face whoever was tormenting her. But she never made it. From the balcony, a woman's shadow appeared. The grinding sound returned, and in an instant, Joo-hee was gone. 4 days later, her company filed a missing persons report after she failed to show up to work. The police reached out to her sister, Joo-young. Because she'd been staying in the company dorms and working overtime, Joo-young hadn't spoken to Joo-hee in days. When she returned to the apartment, she was greeted by a chilling sight. A note stuck on the door, warning them to keep quiet. Inside, the living room was in chaos, the bedroom a wreck as though a struggle had taken place. Shaken, Joo-young tried calling her sister's phone, but it was off. She remembered the endless complaints about the upstairs noise, complaints she'd dismissed. Because of her hearing problems, Joo-young could hear nothing without her hearing aids. She told Joo-hee they should just adapt since they already owned the place. The thought of it now filled her with guilt. Determined, she visited Joo-hee's colleague, Ki-hoon. He explained that during phone calls, Joo-hee always asked if he could hear strange noises in the background, but he never heard a thing. When Joo-young returned to the apartment, she found Joo-hee's phone left behind, powered off. That was unlike her sister, who never went anywhere without it. She bent down to pick up the charger cable, and that's when she noticed it. A large, moldy stain spreading across the floor. Before she could process it, a knock came at the door. On the other side stood the man from Unit 504, the downstairs neighbor. He accused her of making too much noise. Joo-young insisted no one had been home for days, but the man's cold eyes narrowed. He hissed a threat. "If the noise doesn't stop, I'll tear your mouth apart." Terrified, Joo-young shut the door. In the hallway just beyond him, she glimpsed something worse. A woman with long, dark hair standing completely still, staring. Heart racing, she bolted the lock. Once Joo-hee's phone was fully charged, she tried unlocking it, but without the password, it was useless. The next day, she sought out the security guard, asking if he had seen Joo-hee. The guard recalled that Joo-hee had complained about the upstairs noise some time ago, but he hadn't seen her since. When Joo-young mentioned the hostile neighbor from 504, the guard shook his head. "No," he explained. "Mr. Jung-sim in 504 has been complaining too. He hears the same noise. You need to understand." Then he added something chilling. Their apartment was 604, a unit that always drew extra suspicion because of what had happened there before. But before he could finish, another resident rushed over, reporting a foul stench seeping from the basement. The guard hurried away to investigate, leaving Joo-young with more questions than answers. When the guard unlocked the basement door, a suffocating stench rolled out like a physical force. Covering his nose, he explained that for the past 10 years, careless residents had been tossing garbage down there. The trash had piled up into a mountain of rot. To stop it, he had locked the basement, but people still slipped bags of waste through the window. Cleaning it now, he said, would cost hundreds of millions of won, and no one wanted to foot the bill. So the filth remained, festering in the dark. A few days later, Joo-young made a life-changing decision. She quit her job and moved back into the apartment, determined to find her missing sister. The day happened to be her birthday. She sat at the table, staring at the spread of kimchi in front of her. Every year, Joo-hee had prepared it for her, knowing it was her favorite. But this time, the seat across from her was empty. As she sat in silence, a thought struck her. What if Joo-hee used her birthday as the phone password? She tried it, and to her shock, the phone unlocked. Inside were dozens of audio recordings. She tapped one at random. Within seconds, a deafening crash rattled her hearing aids. She couldn't tell whether it came from upstairs or from the phone itself. Heart pounding, she listened to more. Joo-hee's voice filled the files, complaints, desperation, fear. And then, another voice. Low, distorted, impossible to make out. The longer she listened, the closer it felt, like someone whispering right next to her. Startled, she looked around. Nothing. Then she swore she heard her sister calling her name in her ear. Terrified, she flung the phone across the room. Moments later, the doorbell rang. This time, Joo-young heard her sister's voice outside, repeating the same words again and again. Cautious, she peered through the peephole. The figure standing there wasn't Joo-hee. The woman's pupils were pitch black, her presence chilling. Then it came, the grinding noise, that unbearable screech mixed with a shrill ringing that tore through Joo-young's hearing aid, driving her to her knees. The next moment, she jolted awake in her bed, unsure if it had been a dream or something far worse. Soon after, Ki-hoon came to visit. In their conversation, Joo-young learned something shocking. He had been secretly dating Joo-hee for 6 months. She hadn't told anyone, and now he too hadn't heard from her in days. Together, they went to the district office to dig deeper. There, an official told them about the previous tenant of apartment 604. Months earlier, that woman had complained about constant noise. She claimed she saw ghosts. Days later, neighbors reported a foul smell. When police entered, they found her body. She had hanged herself inside the very apartment where Joo-young now lived. The revelation left Joo-young cold. The thought of sitting at that same dining table, knowing a corpse once swung from the ceiling above it, made her stomach turn. Back at the apartment, a massive note had been slapped onto the door. Keep quiet. Joo-young was certain it came from Jung-sim, the hostile man downstairs. Ki-hoon began making missing person flyers while Joo-young phoned the police. She reported Jung-sim's threats, convinced he was connected to her sister's disappearance, but without evidence, the police couldn't act. They checked the building's surveillance cameras. Joo-hee had never left the complex. Her phone and wallet were still in the apartment. Joo-young was sure of it now. Her sister was trapped somewhere inside Jung-sim's unit. She begged the police to search his place, but suspicion wasn't enough. Without proof, they refused. Later, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was Jung-sim himself. Ki-hoon answered. When Jung-sim saw a man at the door, his face softened, but his eyes darted inside. He knew Joo-young was there. Calmly, he asked them to keep quiet, then walked away. But back at his own door, he slipped a hidden knife from his pocket. His jaw twitched with barely contained rage. Determined to act, Joo-young plastered the neighborhood with missing person flyers. As she worked, she noticed a young boy staring at the basement window. Curious, she crouched down to shine her flashlight inside. Before she could see, a voice startled her. Jong-in, a resident from Unit 804, was standing behind her. She warned Joo-young not to spread the flyers. This year, the complex was voting on redevelopment. Any scandal, especially rumors of missing people, would ruin the deal and crash property values. That night, Joo-young sat at home, staring at a flyer with her sister's face on it. Suddenly, click! The lock on the front door turned. Her heart froze. The door opened, and there, stepping inside, was Joo-hee. Tears streamed down Joo-young's face as she rushed forward and threw her arms around her. But instead of hugging back, Joo-hee shoved her away and silently walked into her bedroom. Confused and desperate, Joo-young ran after her. She flung the bedroom door open, empty. The room was vacant. Then, from the living room, came a sound. She spun around, but what she saw wasn't her sister. It wasn't anything human. She woke again, gasping. Another nightmare. Joo-young stumbled into the kitchen for a glass of water, trying to calm her nerves. But through the corner of her eye, she caught sight of something. A figure standing on the balcony. Her heart raced. She turned to run. But at that very moment, Jung-sim appeared at her front door, punching in the code over and over, desperate to get inside. Panicked, Joo-young grabbed a kitchen knife. When she turned back to the balcony, the shadow was gone. Summoning her courage, she stepped outside, blade in hand, But the balcony was empty. She peered through the peephole. Jung-sim was gone too. Only silence remained, but not for long. By then, Jung-sim had snapped completely. Obsessed with finding the source of the noise, he stormed through the halls, shouting, pounding doors, losing his grip on reality. Then, in the corner of his vision, he saw it. A pair of eyes staring at him from the shadows of a doorframe. The hallway light flicked on. He turned sharply, terror etched across his face, and bolted. His sprint ended in tragedy as he crashed headfirst through a glass panel and plummeted to his death. The next morning, Ju-young woke to the wail of sirens. She rushed downstairs only to see Jung-sim's body being wheeled away. Relief mixed with dread. She demanded the police search his apartment for her sister, but they dismissed her. They'd already checked. No trace of Ju-hee. The officer warned her to stop accusing neighbors without proof. Then the head of the residence committee arrived, scolding her for stirring trouble and damaging the community's reputation. With a cold smile, she added, "Apartment 604 is cursed. Everyone who lives there goes mad. Even the neighbors upstairs and downstairs aren't normal." Desperate for answers, Ju-young visited Jong-in in 804. While they spoke, a little girl darted behind them, and Jong-in casually explained it was her daughter. She told Ju-young a grim story. Years earlier, the woman in 704 had accused her of making noise. Out of spite, that woman banged on the ceiling with a frying pan, disturbing the man in 604. Enraged, he burst into her apartment and attacked her with a hammer. She didn't die right away. She pounded the walls for help, grinding her teeth in agony. But no one came. Eventually, her body was discovered, and the neighbors, afraid redevelopment would fall apart, covered it up. The man from 604 disappeared soon after. No one knew where he went, and 704 empty ever since. Ju-young froze. If 704 was empty, who had been making the noise all this time? Back home, another note was taped to her door, but this one was blank. When she peeled it off, words scratched into the wood beneath chilled her to the core. "Go to hell," written in blood. The following day, Ju-young once again plastered missing person flyers across the complex. Meanwhile, a redevelopment meeting was underway. The committee chair feigned sympathy, offering hollow condolences for Jung-sim's death. But Ju-young's grief boiled over. She stormed the stage, yanked the microphone free, and shouted that her sister had vanished mysteriously inside this very complex. "I don't care about redevelopment," she cried. "I just want my sister back." Chaos erupted. The chair tried to shut her down. Residents pulled them apart. But Ju-young's voice carried above the noise. "My sister is here." "She's hidden somewhere in this building." Ki-hoon appeared just in time to drag her away. Breathless, he told her what he'd discovered. The man from 604 never showed up on surveillance leaving the building, which meant he might still be inside. A realization struck Ju-young. The basement. The stench was so overwhelming, no one had ever dared search thoroughly. Together, they ventured down, flashlights cutting through mountains of rotting trash. Ki-hoon filmed with his camcorder, nerves stretched thin. Then his camera caught it, a shadow in the corner. He steadied himself, lifted his phone for a closer look, and froze. It was the missing man from 604. His body lay twisted on the ground. Before Ki-hoon could move closer, a piercing shriek filled the air. He flinched, then watched in horror as the man's severed head rolled to his feet. Somewhere else in the basement, Ju-young found nothing. But when she rejoined Ki-hoon, she saw something was wrong. His movements were stiff, his face pale. She called his name, no response. His body began twitching. Suddenly, his eyes locked on her, filled with murderous intent. Possessed. He lunged. She fell, scrambling backward, begging him to stop. But Ki-hoon wasn't there anymore. She grabbed a stone and struck him across the skull, barely managing to escape. Climbing the ladder out of the basement, his hand clamped onto her ankle. At the last moment, the head of the residence committee appeared, pulling her free. When she woke, she was in the property office, her wounds bandaged. The committee head explained she had saved her and that police were investigating the basement. For the first time, Ju-young let her guard down. They spoke quietly, and Ju-young remarked how she'd only ever seen 2 children in the entire complex, Jong-in's daughter and the head son. The woman froze. She had no son. The truth hit Ju Young like a sledgehammer. She had seen a child, but not one who was alive. Just then, the police called her down. Ki-hoon was dead. Determined, Ju Young slipped back into the basement, ignoring their warnings. There, she discovered Ju-hee's camcorder. On the screen was damning evidence. Footage of vibration machines in Jong-in's apartment, proving the noise was man-made. Then, something worse. Jong-in, speaking in her dead mother's voice to someone unseen. In the next frame, Jong-in attacked Ju-hee with a cup, knocking her out. Ju Young finally understood. Jong-in was behind everything. Following faint sound, she discovered her sister barely alive, hidden deep in the garbage. Carrying her, she turned to leave, only to find Jong-in blocking the exit, hammer in hand, smiling. They fled deeper, but the basement was a maze with no escape. Ju Young hid her sister, then faced Jong-in herself. In her madness, Jong-in confessed everything. Her daughter had been killed by a delivery truck while playing downstairs, and she blamed the woman in 704. In her rage, she had murdered her. The grinding noise returned, tearing through Ju Young's hearing aid. She ripped it out, plunging herself into silence. But Jong-in was already upon her, striking her down with the hammer. Pinned beneath her, Ju Young fought desperately as Jong-in raised the weapon for the killing blow until the noise returned, breaking Jong-in's focus. Ju Young escaped, slamming the iron door shut. Jong-in pounded the door, begging for her life, just as the woman in 704 had. But Ju Young knew the truth now. The others would dismiss it as just noise. She turned her back, leaving Jong-in to her fate. At last, she carried her sister out of the basement. Days later, a new family moved into 704. The neighbors stopped by with gifts, smiling politely. But before leaving, she reminded Ju Young to be careful not to make too much noise.